Brilliant. Thank you very much. So we are actually witnessing a concerning, significant time since the government's cruel Rwanda bill, which have now is becoming a law. The bill remarks a stain in the UK moral standing, rips human rights away from people who come to the UK hoping for safety for them and their beloved ones. The Rwanda bill is not about stopping people in the boats. It's about addressing issue or not about addressing issue of refugees. It's about scapegoating the most vulnerable and unprotected for votes. It appeals to the most base, ugly nature in us and will not solve the problem. And as much as we are concerned about the safety of Rwanda bill, we are equally concerned about what we witnessed in the asylum-seeking hotels. We have been actively working to raise awareness about the critical issue over the past year. Despite all our efforts in working and raising awareness about it and drafting an open letter to address the Home Office about the issue and the struggle that the asylum seekers face in the hotels, the situation remains deeply concerning. I would like to start this webinar just by giving you a brief introduction about this open letter and how it all started. So I will ask my colleague Audrey if she can share the presentation, please.
I'm just going to try and share screen.
Thank you.
Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you still see? Has it blue?
It's on, yeah.
Okay, let me.
So just if you can start it from the beginning.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and just move to the next slide. So in case you don't know about MEWSo, in case this is the first event you're attending with us, we are a women charity run by and for women from ethnic minority communities. The majority of communities we serve from Middle East, North Africa, and Asian backgrounds. Our charity was founded in 2010 by Halaleh. Halaleh, can you just make a wave to the audience? Yes. After her experience as a refugee fleeing war and revolution in the Middle East in the 1980s and 1990s, her multiple experiences of the refugee and the asylum seeking situation made her aware of what is it like to be displaced, coming from ethnic minority and being a woman and trying to make home for yourself in a strange land with unstable immigration status, with few legal rights. So that made the aim of our charity actually is to defend and protect women from violence, both at home and in the wider community, and help them to rebuild their lives through advice, guidance, and support, and campaign and have projects that will support the equality for human rights. Next slide, please. So our campaign started when we received a call from an Farsi-speaking asylum seeker stuck in the Holiday Inn hotel in Heathrow. He called to seek support as he and hundreds of asylum seekers are stuck and neglected in large numbers and they needed support. We tried to contact the hotel administration to arrange a visit, but there was no response for a few weeks. Therefore, we had to head actually to the hotel, but we were denied to enter the hotel even for shared areas like the lobby or the reception. And we were denied to access it at all, claiming that we were not allowed for security purposes. So we had to arrange multiple visits after that, multiple meetings with the hotel administration, so we can arrange a visit where we can go inside and investigate what's going on. After months of back and forth conversation, we were finally granted a permission to enter the hotel, only to the reception area. And we managed to meet with 118 asylum seekers. The condition of the asylum seeker was miserable, as they lack the basic human needs. We were informed that hundreds stuck in this hotel and thousands stuck in the Heathrow area are facing similar conditions. It is worth mentioning that the majority of the asylum seekers in the hotels are coming as a family, so they will be father, mother, and children and babies. So the purpose of our visit was to try to provide as much support as we can. But what we have seen there was way beyond our capacity. Therefore, we have launched our open letter to other organizations who would sign it and support us, and also to address it to the Home Office to take action against what's happening over there. While we understand that thousands of asylum seekers are struggling across London, in the hotel accommodations. However, we believe that the asylum seekers around Heathrow area are the most neglected. Audrey, can you please the second slide? So the asylum seeker expressed to us that they are struggling to get their basic human needs. They showed us many pictures proving that the food provided for them was not suitable for human consumption. Despite that the meals were not enough in the quantity, it was also full of mold to a level where not any human can even look at it. We went during the month of Ramadan, which is month where the Muslim fast from sunrise to sunset. And because many of the asylum seekers coming from the Middle East were fasting, they informed us that they were skipping multiple meals throughout the days because they couldn't eat it. The food provided was also cold, and whenever any asylum seeker would ask the security to heat the food through a microwave, for example, the request was always rejected with no valid points. We were informed that the asylum seeker can't have microwave in their room for health and safety purposes. However, we couldn't understand why the hotel administration wouldn't even heat it for them in the kitchen. In addition to that, the water was another big challenge. The asylum seeker had no water taps in their room, apart from the washroom, which they were using it to drink. The water in the taps come with reddish color, and most of the asylum seekers who we met, they use the support money that they get from the Home Office, which is not a significant amount of money. It's £8 per week to buy drinkable water so they can drink water. In addition to clothes, as many of the asylum seekers flee their home, which has a hot weather like Afghanistan or Pakistan or some parts of the Middle East, and they came to the UK with no winter clothes or lost their items and clothes throughout the journey. So it was actually pretty much cold when we went. We were wearing heavy jackets, and many of the people we met and they talked to us, they were wearing summer clothes and slippers. Sometimes you could see them wearing multiple layers of clothes to keep themselves warm. Not a single charity or even a clothes bank reached out to them, so they were really struggling with the clothes. That's in addition to the healthy environment and hygiene. All of the asylum seekers we met complained from increasing breathing problems due to mold and fungus in their room. They mentioned that despite their continuous demand from the hotel administration to change their rooms or even find a solution for the mold, the hotel administration always denied, which caused increasing in the mold problem and created a toxic air and created later on a breathing problems for many families, especially the ones that have kids and babies. Women in hotel also raised the issue of more need for tampons, pads, and toilet paper. Next slide, please, Audrey.
So this is the slide
Yeah,
after,
got
so
you.
you may. Okay,
So
sorry.
the asylum seeker also expressed their massive need for legal support and advocacy. A big number of the asylum seeker don't know the status of their asylum seeking over there. They were contacted by the time of their arrival by interpreter speakers who filled the application for them, and after that, they haven't heard back from them again. Despite many tries of the asylum seeker to call the numbers who contacted them upon their arrival, the majority of these numbers did not respond or block them or responded with a message like, I'm not your caseworker, I'm just a translator, please call your caseworker. But they had no number of their caseworkers and they had no clue in which status their application is. So they had no clue what the status of their application. And many of them we met, they were there stuck for 3 or 4 years, and they haven't been contacted at least once since they have reached the hotel. This
Sorry,
was not
Haman.
Yeah,
Sorry, Aman. Can you just admit a couple of people? I can't get to the admission button here.
yeah, got you.
Sorry.
That's right. So this was not the case of one person. It was a pattern that we heard from 60 to 70% of the application and from the people we spoke with. It is worth mentioning that there is a decent number of asylum seekers who are stuck in the hotel, have been there for more than 3 years. So in terms of the needs, the asylum seekers are in the hotels are in massive need for medical care and mental health care. Many of the asylum seekers we met lack medical care and access to the NHS, and also the mental health support. And that can be due to many reasons, including that the asylum seeker expressed to us their fear visiting the NHS in terms of they need to provide proof of identification or address, which discouraged many of them to access the care in the NHS or register with a GP for the fear of being deported or fear of being sent to Rwanda. And also, they couldn't afford, many of them, to get mobile devices or access data, or they did not know enough in technology to access the Wi-Fi. And their English language also did not help them to go through the website of the NHS. Some of them, they speak very limited English, and some of them, they don't speak English at all. And they also expressed to us that they need uh, to have translator to communicate with the hotel staff or wherever they go to church, as they go to church every Sunday to get support. So usually in this case, they would ask one of the asylum seekers who can speak a little bit of English to go and translate and make them understand. But in case this person is not available at that moment, they will be in a challenge in making the other people understand their needs or communicating with the hotel staff. It's worth also mentioning that few of them were cancer patients and they needed immediate medical care. The way we were able to communicate with them, we went as three advisors and one volunteer, and we were speaking four languages. And most of the time when we were communicating with them, it was not English, the language that we used. It was Arabic, Farsi, French, and some Urdu as well. But English was not the language that most of them preferred to speak with us with. So if you can move to the next slide, please, Audrey. During our visit, we faced multiple alarming issues. So trafficking, and that's because of one case we met with an Ethiopian girl who unfortunately we were not able to communicate with her due to the severe trauma symptoms that she had. So the girl who was apparently looking between 14 to 18 years old, she was banging her head against the wall continuously. Whenever anyone will come close to her, she would start screaming. She would seem bothered. According to the asylum seeker and other hotel staff, she doesn't sleep at all in the night. She keeps walking around, banging her head, and she does not allow anyone even to help her, like, for example, to brush her hair or change her clothes, which seem to be worn for a long time. According to the staff and the other asylum seeker as well, the girl does not communicate with anyone despite the fact that she does not know English. She also doesn't want to speak due to her apparently trauma. The staff and also the asylum seeker mentioned that she hadn't got a proper care from the NHS as she refused to go because she's scared going with any other company. And she has not been, provided with at least an Ethiopian translator. This case was for us was quite alarming, considering the fact that this girl also arrived with no family member, alone by herself, which raised a serious alarm for us that this can be a child trafficking case, as her condition does not allow her to get outside the hotel. So how did she get inside the plan? And we were also very concerned about how she did not get immediate medical care and mental health care. We were also concerned about women's safety. Um, in the hotels, there is sometimes a whole family in a room. So if there was abuse, it most likely it will be hidden, with no considering that the woman will not be aware of the ways to report the abuse if they were in abusive relationship, and also the fear of reporting if they report the abuser and if they stay with the same person in the same room. And also we have faced a minor case where a minor under 16 years old, he was placed with adults when he arrived. And when we actually met him, he was senior. He was above, I think, 18. But during that time, he was still in the hotel. So at the time of his placement, he was placed with adults when he was still a minor. Next, please.
Next slide.
Yeah.
And I'm just pointing out the time. It's 20 past 11.
Sure, thank you.
And
I'll be
another
going quickly. Yeah.
Another admission to add.
Thank you. So you can see some testimonies from people we met there. A mother of 3 children from Syria, she said, I came to England looking for a safe place to live, but now I am even more scared to be sent to Rwanda. A 56 years old cancer patient from Sudan, he said, I want to know if they will take 1 more year to assess my application. I don't want to die here. I want to be with my family in Sudan. And also a 35 years old asylum seeker from Syria, he said, I'm so scared to go to Rwanda. Sometimes I even think of suicide. The investigation journalism group, they said that there was 23 people seeking asylum are confirmed or suspected to have died by suicide in home office provided accommodation between 2020 and 2024, which is very alarming number. That's in addition to the kidnapping and the asylum seekers who goes missing, which is a case has been brought up recently. Next slide, please.
And another admission, Herman.
Thank you. So what we want the Home Office to take action. We want the Home Office to recognize what's going on, provide basic protection for asylum seeker, and provide them with their basic human rights need. And we also understand our role as an organization to pressure the Home Office at the same time to work all together as a group to try to provide as much support as we can for the asylum seeker. Facing this issue alone is very challenging as the numbers are increasing and the demands are more. But when we work collectively, we will be able to face this issue and provide better protection for them. Therefore, we have our open letter. If you haven't signed it, Audrey will place the link in the chat later on. You can sign it and join us. We will be addressing our open letter to the Home Office tomorrow by 9 a.m. So please add your signature. And yeah, if you have any other questions before I move to our next speaker, which I'm aware that I got a bit late and she should be speaking now. So if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat and I will move to Zrinka she is the CEO of Migrants Organise, and she has done amazing work recently in Against Rwanda plan. I will let her speak about herself. To you, Zrinka.
Thank you very much. I'm still recovering, although we see what you've just presented on a daily basis at Migrants Organise. It's always shocking and we should never get used to it, I think is the point. So thank you again for bringing those voices into all the spaces. I was asked to do a little bit about Rwanda scandal, as I call it, as it is to us. And I wanted just briefly, I can see from some of the names on this call that they're more knowledgeable people and experienced people than I am, but I thought maybe it would be helpful for me to just run through some of the background of how we ended up where we ended up. So if I run us through some of the background. Obviously, immigration is always a problem in this country and there are always challenges, but what we're facing today with Rwanda scandal can be pinpointed back to the openly hostile environment. Up until that point in 2012, the government was at least pretending that they're trying to do some work to respect international treaties to some extent. But from 2012, Theresa May went openly with the hostile environment. And I think that's a really important moment for all of us to think about how can we analyze a problem and what the problem is, and then how we look for solutions. So if we think that we can fix the system, then we're wasting our time, because the system is doing exactly what it's meant to do. It is hostile by design, and the government called it the hostile environment. And the aim of the system is to make life difficult here for people so they would leave or never come. And that is part of the historical, structurally racist system that has now penetrated from immigration system into all our public services. And I'll say a little bit about that. The context for all this hostility also comes from the tabloid press in this country, parts of which are openly xenophobic and racist, and were raising the temperature and sort of creating the environment in which people then were perceived as criminal and were completely dehumanized and denied voice. And that's how we end up where we end up. It started with some of these measures, such as denial of healthcare. Landlords were being forced to check immigration status, driver's license, banking was denied. And that obviously came on the back of people being denied right to work or to go to university or claim benefits, and they were dispersed outside London. And it all sort of ruptured in the Windrush scandal, which was uncovered by the Guardian journalist Amelia Gentleman. Although those of us who work on the front line, we started seeing people who were really ashamed to seek help from the Windrush generation and were in shock about what's happening to them. And then we kind of fast forward to the so-called illegal migration bill, which was openly in breach and, by the admission of the then Home Secretary, not in compliance with European Convention on Human Rights. And it's like one shocking thing after another that we have seen from subsequent Home Secretaries and governments. But we've also seen the emphasis on enforcement and the magic money tree that was available for private companies that are delivering this enforcement. So everything that you've just talked about is actually for profit. And this is how these companies make profit. They put people in a horrible accommodation and don't feed them properly. And people who are here seeking protection, who are severely traumatized, are forced to survive on £9 a week or even less, whereas people from these companies pay themselves huge profits. And how do you make profit? You cut corners. And also people live in fear and they don't really report, and they have no ways of reporting or seeking any support apart from few organizations and campaigning organizations and charities. And now with the Rwanda scandal, what we've seen is that when the government didn't like the Supreme Court decision, they decided, oh, we're going to create another law. So we're going to legislate that white is black and black is white and day is night and Rwanda is safe, which again is shocking, but it is our reality at the moment. And that's what we need to deal with. And it creates a lot of distress and fear in our communities, and people are scared about what's going to happen to them, and they have to deal with this horrible accommodation that they live in, but also they don't really have access to proper legal advice or representation, and all they hear are these terrible headlines, some of which may never happen, but it's enough to scare people, and it's sort of working in the community. And then we've seen the government putting out these videos of enforcement, of dawn raids, and that was really scary. Even though Rwanda scandal is in the making over the last couple of years, it's always a new wave of fear, a new wave of distress that we see. And it's really especially difficult for people who have other issues or have been trafficked or victims of trafficking or modern slavery. And one of the ways that we as a community at Migrants Organise and in Solidarity Knows No Borders community, we started organizing is to start showing up for our people, if you like. And those are the actions. I'm afraid we've given up on letter writing, and perhaps we shouldn't, but all the letters that we've been sending in the last couple of years we didn't even get acknowledgement or response from the government, because it's quite clear that the government is only pursuing this really hard enforcement line. So we've turned to deep roots organizing in our communities. There has been some result and pushback, and we've seen people from all sorts of walks of life speaking out against Rwanda, from the Law Society to Archbishop, from Prince Charles, who sort of made it at the time when he was still Prince of Wales, made it known that he's not approving of this plan, to human rights organizations. So apart from government, all people are speaking out against this as really inhumane and unworkable plan, but also in breach of all our obligations. So what we do and what we're best at is organizing and also building solidarity between different communities and opening up our minds in the face of these really harsh experiences and horrible experiences of our people, that we actually have alternatives, and that safety and dignity and freedom should be for all of us. And we are the ones we've been waiting for in order to deliver that. And so there are many people, and some on this call, who have been organizing for years, if not decades, to push in their communities for better treatment, for a fair treatment, for dignity. So Lucy's here from Haringey, welcome. This is something that they were able to achieve, and they're still working on it. And it's really hard and it's moving really slowly, but it's important for people in their communities to understand how they can organize and what we can do collectively to not to accept hostile environment and racism. Then, Mayor of London, I can say this now because the elections are over, has also made really positive moves towards integration of people, towards welcome, and that's powerful force, because nearly half of Londoners soon will be migrants and refugees, and we play an important role, and this is our city too. We've also seen that when government is willing and open, that communities are able to welcome huge numbers of people here and willing to take people into their own homes. And that is just an indication that people are actually not like the government, and the government is not actually reflecting the will of the people. At least that's what I see in my experience, that there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who are confused by what government is saying and who are willing to welcome people, and not just people from some countries, but people from all over. And when people are welcomed and treated properly and given access to rights and services, they just are living their lives. They're not a burden, they're an asset to our communities. So these are just some of the examples. And it's not to say that these communities should not be welcomed. It is to say that actually, if we can welcome 300,000 people over 5 years, what is another 50,000? Why are we making such a massive fuss about people who are coming on boats? Simply because they have no other way to come here. And that's by the admission of the former Home Secretary, that there is no other way to come. And actually, international protection mechanisms are there for people and provide for people to be able to come here and even enter without documents or in alternative rules. It's important to remember and to say that they're people, they're not boats, and no one is illegal. And you can see from this slide where people are coming from: Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, Eritrea, Syria, Iraq. They're all these places where there are serious wars and conflicts and persecution and disrespect for human rights, where people actually have well-founded fear of persecution. And they're coming here in tiny numbers in comparison to 100 million people who are currently displaced. So what can we do about this? We have been part of the collective effort of numerous organizations, and I can drop this link in the chat. But it's first thing first. So when the raids and rounding up of people happened, we needed solidarity, we needed information from people, and some brilliant lawyers who are part of our Access to Justice campaign have come together and offered time. And just be aware that these are limited resources. There is no legal aid. There are no legal aid advisors, as I'm sure everybody knows on this call. So we really appreciate people offering their numbers and advice for people. Then there are brilliant organizations that are organizing safeguarding at reporting centers up and down the country, and making sure that when people go into report, they actually come out. And this is because everybody who is claiming asylum is technically on bail, because the government is criminalizing us. We also have extraordinary champions out there who led the way, not only about talking positively, but also, like in the case of Gary Lineker, risking his career. And at the same time, he's part of the hosting scheme and was hosting young refugees from Eritrea. We have action-orientated groups, and I highly recommend to everyone to follow these groups and organizations and civil society initiatives on social media to stay up to speed and to volunteer time and energy where possible. If you have a spare bedroom, this is what you can do. You can join a hosting scheme. There are other hosting schemes. This is just one example. But again, 5,700 people found home in this way, which again shows that the people and the policies are two different things in this country. We run at Migrants Organise and collectively across the board numerous campaigns. This is our Dr. Jess Potter, who's my hero, and she works in NHS and is a part of Patients Not Passports campaign, but there's also a campaign on Homes for All. There is a campaign to abolish reporting. There are numerous campaigns that people can join and give time, but also stay up to speed with grassroots organizing. And these exist around the country. And I think what we say is that what we want is solidarity and not charity, which means we still want your donations and your support, but what we want is a proper show of solidarity for people to be showing up for people who are in distress and in need right now. And we are part of a broader Solidarity Knows No Borders community, where there are resources and links to organizations, and this is our new website, so it's still being populated, so please check it out and add yourself as well, but also come along and join organizing, because we can do this, but we can only do this together, and we can do it by as organizers rather than just activists and campaigners. So I'll stop there. I think my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zrinka. Thanks for making the time to come and speak. I know you're not well, but you always empower us by your speeches and the amazing work you do with Migrants Organise and Solidarity Knows No Borders. So really, thank you. I'll be moving to our next speaker for today, Member of Parliament, John McDonnell. So I will head over to you. Thank you for coming and for making the time to be present here today with us.
Not at all. Just so people know, I'm the Member of Parliament for Hayes and Harlington, which includes Heathrow. So let me just give you a brief report to follow on from what the Chair has said and what Zrinka has said about the current state within my constituency, the situation as it now is, okay? And we have, at the moment, as of the 2nd May, the official figure is 2,045 asylum seekers in hotels in my constituency. On average, over the last 2 years, we've had between 2,000 and 2,500. They're in 7 hotels. Many of you will recognise the names of these hotels: Novotel Heathrow, Novotel Cherry Lane, Holiday Inn, Easy Hotel, Crown Plaza, which you all know, and Airlink, but also Stay City now. And we've been able to negotiate families moving into Stay City in Central Hayes, which are more, although it's a hotel, they're more flatlets, which are actually a better standard than most. The Aerial, some of you will have worked in, is shut now, and I'm told that the Airlink is to close by July. Just to confirm what the chair said in the introduction with regard to standards, just running through it quickly. On food, in some hotels where there's access to kitchens where cooking takes place within those kitchens, we generally find the standard of food is better, and the quantity is better as well. But generally, what the problems that we've had, and this is regular, sometimes is dreadful standards, then it improves after inspection, then it sinks back again. A lot of the food is brought in, as exactly has been said. There are complaints that come up time and time again about quantity, about quality, but also about the cultural diversity of the food as well. What is edible to people in the normal way of things? With regard to health, I have to say the local GPs have worked incredibly hard to ensure access, as local clinicians have, but they struggle both in terms of making sure of access, but also the supply of those services, particularly around mental health. We're dramatically under-resourced in the NHS anyway, but in mental health in particular. And all of you will know, as you've met the asylum seekers themselves, all of them have some mental health challenge and often traumatized as well, alongside often physical injury as well. But again, I have to say that the local clinicians have done their best, but under-resourced. On education, we had a real battle for the first year to get children into schools. The local authority wasn't helping. We've been able to establish access to local schools. But again, what's happening there is there are no additional resources being provided to those local schools as well. And we're working with local educational psychologists where there's a local team trying to provide as much assistance as they possibly can. And I actually think the schools themselves and the teachers themselves are doing their best, but they're under-resourced with a range of specialisms that they need. Exactly as been said with regard to language facilities too. Although I have to say, it's interesting, the children that I've met who've gone into the classes, the way that they've picked up language is unbelievable. It just is a demonstration of the versatility of children and how they can rise to it. And the families there have to be commended for the support they've given to their children. Legal advice is a struggle. There's no doubt about that, access to legal advice. And one of the demands we've got to get back to, I think, in all of this is a complete renewal of the strategy with regard to legal aid. We've got to re-establish legal aid access for everybody. Clothes was mentioned. We have had local charities and local religious groups, the mosques, the churches come together. Belfarm Christian Centre near one of the hotels has provided a food bank as well as a clothing bank. And again, I'm quite pleased the way local communities have assisted on that. But it's an endless supply. When you have a turnover of asylum seekers as well, you need an endless stream of food supply, clothing supplies. On the length of stay, anything 2 to 3 years now. But here's the problem that we've got. My office, I've done surgeries in some of the hotels, but my office, I have 3 staff in my office in the constituency. We deal with individuals and trying to chase the Home Office for processing their cases. And it's been difficult to say in terms of the volume, but also in terms of getting the Home Office in gear to process the cases. I have to say in this last year, the Home Office has speeded up. Virtually all of our cases have been accepted, have been given some form of indefinite leave to remain. And I'm talking about sort of 97, 98% of success in getting their cases. But this is the problem now we've had over this last period. As people are being given status, they've been told then to leave the hotel. We've had a row with the former Minister Jenrick about this. We were told by officials that they'd be given 4 weeks' notice. Actually, we evidenced from the correspondence that many were given a week or less than a week's notice. What then happens is that they go to the local council for assistance on housing. The local council is a Conservative council. They have restrictive housing policies. To get on the council waiting list in Hillingdon, you have to have proven that you've lived here 10 years. So there's no one going to qualify on that criteria. So therefore, it's down to dispersal around the country. And what we've got now is a building homelessness crisis as a result of the lack of provision of hotels as people housing as people leave the hotels. Again, what we've been finding, actually, some local families have been taking people in, which has been really helpful. But we now have, on top of the already housing crisis that we've got in the area, we've now got another housing crisis building up as a result of the failure of the government to plan any process by which someone arrives, they're accommodated, and the idea, and that's meant to be short term, it isn't. But then when they're given status, the planning should go into making sure that they then have somewhere to go and live. There's no planning whatsoever. I think it's a crisis point from crisis point that we go through. We've also got this issue too, with regard to the coordination with the Home Office. We established with them that we would have regular meetings and that they would coordinate local agencies as well. That seems to have broken down. And again, we're going back now to try and re-establish some forms of communication. So at least we know what the Home Office is planning by way of the location of individuals, then also to try and get them into some rational process of planning of what happens with regard to the individual cases, the families, how their applications are processed, then what the consequences are of that, how they're properly housed and supported as well. I have to say, again, where we've been able to get particularly some of the teenagers into education, and our local FE colleges have been really helpful. Again, many of them have been incredibly successful, but I'll give one example of the brutality of the system. It was last year, I think it was, we had a number of teenagers that had gone to the local Uxbridge FE college, and yet 4 weeks before their exams, they then get shifted out of the area. Although we appealed, look, they've only a few more weeks to get their exams done, they still got shifted. And the local college lecturers were protesting about that. But it just demonstrates the lack of planning and also the brutality of it. And remember also, although we've been able to encourage some language classes within some of the hotels, others have to go to a local college, but they get no support in terms of transport for that. So that has to come out of their £8 a week money that they get. And what we're finding is that by the time they've come to their second day, they can't afford to travel anymore. So again, it's just the hardship that people are facing is appalling. We're going to be raising it again with ministers. We're trying to establish the coordination with the Home Office again. But again, there doesn't seem to be any coordination between the government department, the Home Office responsible for processing cases, and the government department that's responsible for local government and housing. There doesn't seem to be any real planned approach whatsoever. We'll be raising and exposing that. In the constituency, we've also got 2 detention centres, Harmersworth and Colnbrook. This is where Rwanda comes in. As people are picked up, detained to be sent to Rwanda, my understanding is that some of them will be detained in Harmersworth because it's near Heathrow before they're then sent to Rwanda itself. It's rumoured, I haven't any confirmation yet, that a wing at Harmersworth has been cleared of detainees to accommodate the Rwanda detainees as that takes place. Some of you will know about Harmersworth and Colnbrook, but just for those who don't, over the years, 40 years ago, I used to visit Harmersworth. There was two huts, Nissen huts, no more than about, at best, a dozen, maximum 20 people in them, and detained for a short period associated with Heathrow. And often it was about people being swiftly returned, sometimes because of criminal issues, etc. It's now, there's 2 detention centres. They're now can accommodate 1,000 people. They're pretty severe regime. We've had suicides, self-harm, mental health issues, and on 2 occasions they've had to close Harmersworth down because the detainees themselves have had enough. On 1 occasion, Harmersworth was burnt down. So it's quite potentially a violent regime that people are going to be put in, and it's a harsh regime as well. A number of years ago, we even had children detained there, but we managed to campaign and get that ended. So I'm worried that what will be happening is that people will be detained, they'll be taken to Harmersworth. It's a pretty harsh regime, and I worry for their safety there, to be frank. We'll be doing all we can to ensure that we support as much access as we can get. We support those detainees. We'll be working with individual lawyers on individual cases to try and ensure that we give people the best opportunity of avoiding the sending to Rwanda itself. But the government seems determined on it, and I'm hoping that there's a flood of legal challenges that prevents it happening. One final point from me, there's an election coming up later in the year. We have to ensure that the Labour Party maintains its commitment to ending this scheme immediately. I also think we should be pressing for ensuring that any of those people who have been sent to Rwanda are given the opportunity to return as well to this country and have their claim processed properly and then being supported. Okay, so that's where we're at the moment. It's pretty bleak, and it has been for the last couple of years. The other thing just to say about detention in Harmersworth and Colnbrook, as people know, there's no time limit on detention in the detention centres. So people can be trapped in this situation for years with their cases not properly dealt with. And you can imagine the impact that has, but not knowing what your future is and not knowing when your future will be decided as well, the impact that has on the mental health of individuals detained there as well. From a political point of view, I'll be continuing to raise these issues in Parliament. I'm not getting much of a response. I've had ministerial meetings. Again, we've had a turnover of ministers in the Home Office, like in every other government department. There seems to be no consistency of decision-making or planning, and it's pretty brutal at the moment, with asylum seekers are treated with a sort of brutal disdain by government ministers.
Thank you very much, MP John McDonnell, for all the valuable information you provided us, and again for having the time to come and be present here with us. Really, thank you from the heart. I'll be moving to our next speaker today. I'll be moving to Halaleh, and we're very keen, as always, to hear her insight and her thoughts on all what we've been said. So, Halaleh, over to you.
Thank you so much, Aman. Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming here today, staying with us with such an important issue, and not one issue, actually 2 issues, both Rwanda and both the refugee and asylum seekers' life in the UK. First of all, I wanted to thank Aman and her team, who were working hard during this project the last 6-8 months on these hotels that they are working with. And then it was a good time that really to make it such a seminar and working together to gather our thought, what we can do that from now for the future of those people, because they live here, they are our neighbor, they live like exactly like us in this country. I wanted to start from myself. 30 years ago, when I came to Europe, of course, I didn't come to England. I was in Sweden, but it's a similar situation. I was welcomed after all the conflict and wars and family lose so much that I had it. Then suddenly come to the country and I was welcome. I guess I was lucky one. But unfortunately, what I can see that today, we can see that today, that's not the case for refugee and asylum seekers, for people who are fleeing from the war, from conflict, from problem, and searching for a better life. I would say that we, in the last decade especially, we are facing another world that is very dangerous, very scary for all of us, and especially for the migrant and asylum seekers. By the rise of kind of racism and fascism in the world, especially among those North America or Europe, the ideology starting even to get a chance to the status, and governments, some of them win, the parties win, and then they can do whatever they wanted. And all of them have been promoted by the right wing in those countries. And we are in a dangerous zone, actually, because by the rise of such an ideology, so in the first place, the human being will be divided. The part of the people who've been welcomed and worked in the society, were useful, had a talent, and then they could be a good citizen in this country. Now they are diseased. I heard, not directly, but heard, and we show in Zrinka's presentation, that the migrant is such a issue, such a disease, such a big problem that we must get rid of them. So in such an environment, therefore, even not by the law, they starting to making poison, to creating poison in the society, in the public, that we must get rid of such group, such people. Even they can be useful in the society, even they can rebuild their life and can be any good citizen in this country. We are facing such a war, unfortunately, here today in the UK, and even in the other country in Europe, but we are talking about the UK because we feel responsible, we live here. And unfortunately, I can't see that in the last few years. Zrinka may know about that as well. Of course, we are some organization, many activists that we are gathered, we are trying to get help for that. But even with the refuge, with many other groups, they are not showing the same interest like before. So therefore, we are going to be more and more like a group that we are fighting together for that. But we can change this situation. First of all, the movement, the building movement is really important, making the campaign around such an issue, and then gather together and making a big noise and working in the community, working with people, working with those people who are not happy what's happening with the NHS, who are not happy what happened with their wages, with the inflation in the society, with the housing issue. All of them, how it's been created is by the government's policy, is by the profit that still people are making in this society, is just for a few people, not for the rest of the people in the society. This is not from the migrant and refugees issue. This is not, they don't cause such a problem. So therefore, movement building is really important. And in this movement building, I believe that worker class, union, NHS organization, Amnesty International, all those big organizations that are working must come for support with such an organization like Zrinka, like us, like some MPs in the government that wanted to help. So I'm hoping this is the only way that we can fight back among the fascism and racism that they've got in place to improve, to increase in the society, that we can fight back by the human rights again, by the fighting for the best life for people. In the International Workers' Day, we faced it. Few organization and union came to the rally that we had it. This shouldn't be like that, because as much as we will be quiet and silence the other side, the right side, it will be more noisy and more fighting against us. So I'm demanding and I'm asking that all people who feel in this way, we must do something together. We must do, for example, the Rwanda law. I know that in the first place, the court were against that. Then even they gave up on that, and the government they win the situation, but we can fight it back again. Maybe in the next election that we can raise this issue very urgent with the politician again. And in the ground, in the grassroots, we must start with all those organizations, all those charities to gather our energy, our strength again, fighting back regarding this issue. I think the Rwanda law is a very, very scary, dangerous, not just for immigrants, but it's the first stage for our future. If we fail with that, unfortunately, because our voice wasn't enough strong, they have more power, all the power that they can do that. But if they're starting with the Rwanda, we will be in danger for the second stage. Right now, disabled people have been under attack by the government. And then NHS is under dangerous situation. All of those policies will be low in future, and then we will lose all the work, all the fight that for years, more than 100 years, people in Europe fighted for that, and then had it as a benefit, has it as a rights, basic rights for them. One by one, will get it back from us. So therefore, we needed bigger voices. In my opinion, I rely on working class. I rely on socialist group. I rely on those part of the politician that they are against such a attack on the human rights. And I rely on women's and human rights organization, because it's about us, it's about our future, and we needed to unite together. With this open letter, it's a little bit that we are working. It's not a huge work, but we starting with this. And also with the movement that Zrinka is rising about the migrant. And I am a member of that, and I am proud of that. And also with the future issue that is coming, we needed to organize it more, campaign, to organize it more open letter. We shouldn't give up on the open letter, because the open letter connect us again. So we will be together, and then we will talk more about that, what we can do that in future. And then I personally, on behalf of MEWSo, I'm ready for that. I'm a campaigner, and I would love to work in this area because my community need me. I'm a speaker on behalf of the most vulnerable people in the community, and it's my duty to do this. I'm so proud that you are here about such a critical issue that we are discussing. And I think after this meeting, we shouldn't finish it just with open letter. It's just open a door for us that we must work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Halaleh. I'm very conscious of the time, so I know that our advisor Zara would like to speak about one of her cases, but just because I'm conscious of the time, I will move it to Meta, and right after that, maybe we can hear give Zara a couple of minutes to speak about her case. So I would like to introduce right now Meta. Meta is an advocacy director at the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigration. Talking about Open Letter, they recently launched an amazing open letter to address all what happened in the Rwanda bill, and you can go to their Twitter and their website and check it out. It's really interesting one. So Meta, over to you.
Hi everyone, I hope you can hear and see me okay. It's really lovely to see you all. I'm sorry for joining quite.
I think Meta's facing a connection problem. I think so. So, hello?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now. You went away for a sec. So maybe if you would like to keep your camera off and maybe you have a better connection.
Yes, I'll do that. Is this better?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you. Yeah, so I thought maybe I can share a little bit about the Rwanda plan and how it's what we know, what we don't know, how it might affect people, especially in asylum accommodation. I can also share further resources by chat and or can be sent around by email as well. And I also want to share a little bit about one of our other projects that we coordinate, which is the Migrant Champions Network, which is a network of local counsellors who are champions of migrants' rights in their local communities, and the work that they have been doing to support people in asylum accommodation, how you could get involved as well. So with the Rwanda plan, as you all may know, this is a horrific plan by the government that was already, initially ruled unlawful by our Supreme Court last November, but the government is pushing through via another form of legislation and a new treaty with the government of Rwanda. The purpose of this is to essentially tell people who want to come to this country to seek asylum that we're not going to consider your case, and instead we're just going to expel you to Rwanda. You can apply for asylum there, but you can never apply for asylum in the UK or come back here, except for in extremely limited circumstances. So it's a terrible plan. It's already causing so much harm in our communities, because even though thankfully no one has successfully been sent to Rwanda under the forced scheme, we know that it's causing a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress in communities. Generally, no one wants to be sent to Rwanda. People come here to seek asylum because they want to come to the UK to seek asylum, and they want to rebuild their lives here. And it really should be on us to welcome those people and help them rebuild their lives as part of our communities. So if it would help, I can share a little bit about what the Rwanda plan is, and who is currently at risk of being targeted by this. Sorry, just give me 1 second as I try to, I wonder if it might be helpful for me to also share screen.
You're a co-host right now, so you
Okay.
should be, yeah.
This is just a sharing screen of our resource that is available online, so everyone can access this, and I can send a link, so it's not like a specific presentation. It's quite wordy, so apologies for that. But basically, in terms of who is at risk, so who can the Home Office try to send to Rwanda under this plan? You may be at risk if you are an adult, so over 18 years of age, and you don't currently have a visa, and you claimed asylum in the UK on or after the 1st of January 2022, and you came to the UK on a dangerous journey and passed through another country where you could have claimed asylum instead. So in terms of what counts as a dangerous journey, we take that to mean, crossing on a small boat from France or on a lorry. And if you have not received a decision on your asylum claim, especially if you still haven't done your asylum interview or questionnaire. This part of the criteria is a little bit complicated because it has to do with rather complex guidance from the Home Office in terms of who, called the inadmissibility guidance, in terms of who can be admitted into the UK asylum system. But basically, based on what we are seeing on the ground, it seems like anyone who falls under those other criteria could potentially have their asylum claim not admitted in the UK, which would then put you at risk of being sent to Rwanda. So currently we are kind of warning and making sure that anyone who fulfill all of those criteria to just be prepared and understand what the risks are. What happens if someone is at risk? The Home Office can detain you and take you to an immigration detention center before they can put you on a plane. The government has been promising to send a first flight sometime, it used to be spring, now it's possibly summer, but as far as we know, there hasn't been a flight confirmed yet, so there's still time to prepare your case, challenge your case, and stop people from being sent to Rwanda. Before or after you are detained, the Home Office, this is how you know you are definitely at risk of being sent to Rwanda, is when the Home Office actually sends you these letters. So one is called a notice of intent, which is when it will say the words notice of intent, and it will also explain that you may be removed to a safe third country, including Rwanda. And then a second decision letter that says that confirms that your asylum claim is inadmissible, meaning that the UK will not consider your asylum claim in the UK. So if you are detained, you can challenge your detention and apply for bail, so you can leave the detention center. Under the Rwanda Act, you can still challenge the decision to send you to Rwanda based on your personal circumstances, especially, in particular, if you will face a risk of serious and irreversible harm if they send you to Rwanda. There are exceptions. So the government has said that they will not send children or anyone who have children in the UK or anyone with Rwandan nationality. They also cannot send people who can show and prove that they have specific risk of serious and irreversible harm. This isn't in this document yet, but if somebody does get a notice of intent letter, they have 7 days to respond if they are in detention, 14 days if they are not in detention. You can ask for an extension, obviously, because 7 days to kind of prepare all of your case and representation is ridiculous. And then there's currently efforts to challenge this as well. So really what we are currently advising people is if they think they are at risk, it's important that they find a qualified lawyer as soon as possible so that they can know exactly whether they are at risk and know what their options are. So we have also listed some organizations that are currently taking on Rwanda cases, but also there's further actions if you just, even if you are not at risk but you want to join the fight and resist this plan, there's lots that we can do as well. We have a petition. We have several petitions, actually. We're also encouraging people to join their local anti-raids groups. If you are able to kind of support efforts to stop the Home Office from actually conducting immigration raids and detaining people in your communities. You can also support people in detention through visiting groups. So there's a link here to AVID. They coordinate visiting groups across the country. So this just means coming to a detention center and giving people, emotional, moral support, not legal advice, but, to just show people that we are about them and that we are fighting this plan. And then, or to get involved in networks like Solidarity Knows No Borders, as Migrants Organise here in this call, or Action Against Detention or Deportations. In terms of how it might affect people in asylum accommodations, as I mentioned, going back to these criteria, what we have seen so far is that the Home Office seems to be detaining people either when they go to report at a reporting center or at a police station, or they have been conducting raids, going into people's homes and actually abducting them, which is horrific. If you currently, if you did claim asylum on or after 1st of January 2022, people will have what's called reporting conditions, which is when they do have to report to the Home Office. I think it will vary very much case by case. where your asylum accommodation is, whether you have to then go to a reporting center or whether, or if you don't. So it will vary very, very much. But I think generally speaking, anyone who fulfills these criteria could be at risk, and that could include people who are in asylum accommodation and hotel. Important to just make sure that we are getting the information that we need people to know, so that they are aware of the risks involved. I'm going to kind of switch gears now and talk about, what other support is available, sort of not just on the Rwanda plan, but in terms of support for people in asylum accommodation. So at JCWI, we also coordinate the Migrant Champions Network. So I'm going to see if I can share screen again, sorry. Which is a network of, as I mentioned, local councillors across the country, who have, they are either actually named migrant champions in their local councils, or they have just said, you know what, like, I obviously care a lot about migrants and refugees in my local area and I want to do more to support them. So this is what the network is. And it's both like, essentially, we coordinate it, but really it's the councillors kind of deciding what kind of campaigns they want to do and what resources they need to support people in their communities. So they work on a lot of different areas, but a big one, as you might imagine, is on asylum accommodation. So because we know, unfortunately, like, because the central government has effectively, offloaded the responsibility and the cost of supporting people to local governments, it is ultimately local councillors who know and really understand, like, what the impact is on the ground of people in their communities. So yeah, the councillors in the network have been very passionate about campaigning to end the use of hotels and any form of inappropriate accommodation, and instead supporting for people to be able to be housed in communities. And I just want to go through some of the resources that are available, so that you can, if you want, share it with your local councillors as well. So they've developed quite a lot of resources for councillors. For example, there's a whole section on asylum accommodation that kind of helps councillors understand what their responsibilities are, but also how they can support people better. Yeah, there's, specific resources on children, specific resources on adults at risk, health, access to food, etc. So yeah, I think there's definitely lots of people, in the movement and beyond who do care about, the situation facing migrants and refugees in this country, and are active assisting this at various, whether that's us in our communities or local councillors through their work. Yeah, I would really recommend that if you want to engage with your local councillors as well and let them know about the Migrant Champions Network, let them know about these resources that exist to help them so that they can actually support people in their communities. I might stop there and pause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meta. Really interesting information. And I would kindly ask you if you can put the links in the chat box, because I can see that there is really interest in all what you presented. And I think you have a question from Lucy in the chat. She's asking, is someone who has had their case refused and whose lawyer is preparing an appeal at risk of removal to Rwanda?
So they would not be at risk of removal to Rwanda under this scheme, but they are, if your asylum claim has been rejected, you are at risk of being sent either back to your home country or, quote unquote, a safe third country. And this is where, I don't know if people are aware of the sort of, again, scandalous voluntary departure scheme to Rwanda, where the Home Office is offering people £3,000 to go to Rwanda. They might be offered that plan. So I guess they will be given a choice of, do you want to go back to your home country, or here's this other option, you know, to go to Rwanda. But again, in that situation, you would not be able to come back to the UK. And if anyone is facing that situation, our recommendation is to definitely speak to a lawyer and get independent legal advice. Find out as many information as you can from the Home Office in writing about what this offer is, you know, what is the situation, what the situation will be like in Rwanda, what your rights will be. Also to understand what the risks are in Rwanda with regards to your own, you know, personal circumstances. We're very concerned that people are being kind of offered, quote unquote, offered this option without it being communicated that, first of all, it is voluntary, so you can say no, but also whether they even have full and informed consent, whether they know what all the risks are, whether they know all the risks involved with that option.
Thank you very much. Another question from Maria. Do you have any links about women who are thinking about an MV/DAC for those on a spouse visa?
No, I can ask around and find out and share. Yeah, I should have clarified at the start. I'm not actually an immigration lawyer myself. Yeah, I'm the advocacy director, but I can ask my lawyer colleagues and share around any information we have on that.
Thank you, many thanks. And yes, if you please share the links, I can see on the chat that everyone is asking for the links. That will be much appreciated. And thank you for taking the time to be present as well here with us today and presenting all this interesting information. Before I move to our final speaker for today, our domestic violence advisor, Zara, who was also part of this project and part of this visit to the hotels, she was supposed to be presenting the first presentation with me today. Unfortunately, she was not well to be at the beginning, but I think she's now with us. She would just like to take you briefly about one of the cases she worked with, and then I'll be moving to Leah, our final speaker. So, Zara?
Yes, hi. Hello,
We can hear
everyone.
you, yes.
Can you hear me? Yes. So again, my name is Zara. I'm the Senior Domestic Violence Advisor and as well the coordinator for the volunteers. I would like to share just one case that really, broke my heart, and I think we should really think about it. We spoke about many people are facing difficulties, but when different issues arise with the same person, this is where our capacities is very limited. So this lady, she has two children, one of whom has autism and severe autism. Is 3 years old. She's in she was an asylum seeker. At the moment, we helped her. She's got her status. She's a refugee. She's stable, but within all this time, a period of 9 months of struggle to get her help. She was in the hotel. The child needs specific dietary needs, but hotel was not able to provide that. I've tried to make a referral to social services. They wouldn't take her case because every time we explain to them the situation, they say that it's a migrant help issue. They need to provide this. And her case is they are responsible about her case. So calling the migrant help will take 4 hours of waiting time, and I'm sure that if there is an advisor within our group, they know what I'm talking about. Writing emails, I've wrote dozens of emails with just automated reply. So because of this, not just this case, there is many cases, but I just picked this one because it really marked me. And because of this case, we came to this idea of project that, because I referred her to a food bank one time, she could not wait because of the because of her son. He wouldn't stay in the pushchair, and the queue is longer. I did the picking up one time for her on her behalf, but again she could not do. So we said, why not? We speak with the people who provide the the ingredients, and then we can have a small section in our office, because we have an office in Andover, and then this is for vulnerable ladies who cannot go physically to food banks because of disability, because of the disability of their children. So me and Aman, we had several meetings with Fair Share Go. Is part of the Felix projects as well. They are the same people, and we had luckily we had the agreement that they would offer us all the needs that we need, and we had as well a visit from Islington, to be able to be food providers, because this is like kind of a standard that so we will be starting in the coming few weeks, and I'm sure that this project this is a small thing that we've done, and I'm sure if this project is successful, many of other organizations can do the same. And we say drop by drop it can fill up the cup. So thank you very much for listening.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Zara, and thanks for putting so much effort to be here as well. I know you're not well, and I can see someone's hand is up. Sudabe. Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, hello, everyone. I just wanted to mention something very important in hotel. And I am welfare advisor, senior welfare advisor and LGBT officers in MEWSo. And in LGBT people in hotel, I mean LGBT people as asylum in hotel have very bad situation. I really believe their problem or their bad situation is much more than other asylum seekers. Because when they coming from Middle Eastern countries and other heterosexual Middle East countries, of course, they coming from those countries. LGBT issues is taboo in those countries, and of course, they never educated about these issues. That's why they don't like LGBT people. Of course, not all of them, and we had many cases about these issues. I mean, bad cases in hotel. And for example, we had a woman, transgender woman in a hotel, and she treated by very badly, actually, by knife from other asylum seekers. And we tried to move her in other hotels, and of course took 4 days, and she was very lucky because nothing happened in those days. My point is migration's help or home office do not notice these issues, even police, and I think it's very important they notice about this because those asylum seekers are new arrival in this country, and they did not have any opportunity, any time to cope themselves to this country or educate about these issues. Yeah, we have to notice that. Thank you, Aman.
Thank you very much, Sudabe. Thanks for your contribution. I'm aware that we're very late on Leah. Leah is our final speaker for today. Leah is a legal education officer at Rights to Remain, and she will be speaking to us about her organization, their toolkit, and many people in the hotels can use the advice services and the support they offer. So, Leah, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much. Thanks for sharing all the information that you have already about this campaign and for the work that you've been doing to draw attention to those experiences of people who are effectively detained in asylum hotels in such terrible conditions and for such a long time. And thanks for all the previous speakers. It's great to hear the amazing work that's going on and the solidarity that does exist also. So my name is Leah and I'm one of the legal education officers at Right to Remain. And Right to Remain is a registered charity and we work with communities, groups and organisations all across the UK. We have existed since 1995 and in a previous life we were the National Coalition of Anti-Deportation Campaigns. So that kind of gives you an idea of our roots and history. And we provide information, resources and training to people to help establish their right to remain and to challenge injustice in the asylum and immigration system. And our mantra, quite simply, is that no one is illegal. We're at a quite exciting time in our organisation. We've just unveiled our new theory of change, and that is based on 3 quite simple building blocks. The first is about building knowledge, then about building radical solidarity, and finally about building power. And we do that basically by providing public legal education workshops and resources, strategically convening and campaigning through community organising. And in terms of our legal education work, we're probably best known for our toolkit, which is a free step-by-step online guide to the UK immigration and asylum system. It's written in simple terms. We try and make legal concepts much more accessible, and it is available in many languages, which is really, really important. Every single page can be viewed in another language, and we have lots of different languages available. And the toolkit comes directly from experts. So it's written from people going through the legal process or people who've been through the legal process, and from those helping them. We have advice from lawyers and different community groups. And what we really try and do is make sure that the toolkit gives practical advice about what you can do. And it's not about telling you things, it's about showing you the system and trying to tell you that you can take practical steps at every stage. We also have a legal updates blog, which we update regularly with key bits of information about what's happening in the asylum and immigration space. And very recently, we've been very busy updating our legal updates blog with all the information about the Rwanda plan, immigration raids, and also the consequences of not attending a reporting session. We know that these bits of information are so important for people who are affected by the Rwanda plan or worried they may be affected. This is a really frightening time for our community and we can feel it. And the Rwanda Act is causing widespread anxiety and confusion. So a lot of what we're trying to do is trying to challenge some of the misinformation and confusion that is spreading with accurate and up-to-date information. Last week, we also ran an emergency information session on the Rwanda Act and treaty with what we know so far. And we were really overwhelmed with the interest. We had over 380 people attend, and we explained the basics of the Rwanda plan and gave information about immigration raids. It was also really amazing to have our These Walls Must Fall campaigning organisation with us, and they have been working flat out over these past, it's now a week and a half. They have been outside reporting centres, outside the Home Office and police stations where people have to report, offering a solidarity presence and making sure that people who go in have numbers of people they can call if they are detained. And that support is absolutely vital. And our campaigners have been really helpful also in letting people know the importance of maintaining a calm presence outside reporting centres because of the fear that so many people feel when they have to go and report. So in terms of how people in hotels might be able to use the toolkit itself is a massive resource, and I think it'll be really useful for people in hotels to be able to understand some basics of how the asylum system works if they have questions about how asylum support works, what's happening with their asylum support payments, what they're entitled to, maybe how to gather evidence for an asylum claim or a specific medical condition, or what happens if you're worried about the Rwanda plan and the possibility of being detained. We have updated our detention and reporting toolkit page, which has information about how to prepare in case you are detained. And that is really, really important that we're sharing that as much as we can. So as I mentioned, the toolkit comes in many languages. We think that will be helpful. You mentioned at the start, there's lots of different languages spoken. So giving people information in their own language is so, so important. And I also suggest that you have a look at our YouTube channel where we have some key videos also in different languages. As has been said by so many people today, we know that there's a legal aid crisis and lots of people are going through this system without a lawyer and will go through the entire asylum system potentially without a lawyer. And it is so, so vital that we have resources that can plug that gap so that people who are in that situation of going through the asylum system without a lawyer have information, the information that they need about how the process will work. So we ask really that people share the toolkit as much as possible and don't gatekeep this information. And you also show people how to use the toolkit. It's a really big resource, but every single toolkit page has a search engine function at the top. We have search bars where you can type in key phrases. Maybe you have a question about asylum support or a question about accommodation. You can type that in at the top and it'll pull up every page with information about that. I'm just going to put a couple of links to things that I have mentioned in the chat. But if anybody has any questions about the toolkit or about our public legal education work or campaigning work, please do get in touch with me or ask questions. And thank you again for this call. And it's great to hear so much solidarity in this space in what has been a particularly difficult 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah, and please do put the link in the chat for the toolkit. I think it's very useful for all other organizations to get the chance to see it and also to use it. I see Audrey's hand is up.
Can I just quickly tell everyone that I've been saving all of the, I've been copying all of the links that have been put in the chat, and in the next few hours I will put it in an email. And hopefully Aman's got everyone's email, so I'll give it to Aman, and Aman can put it in an email to share with everyone. And it will also be in our newsletter next month, just in case we don't have your email. We'll put it, all of these links in the newsletter so you can get access to it as well.
Thank you, Audrey. And yeah, I'll send the recording and all the links straight away after the event. I think we have maybe 15 minutes for a panel discussion, and we were thinking if we can all come together, like how we think that as a charities, as an organization, we can put pressure on the Home Office, on the government to take actions against what's happening in the hotels, as well as how we can make a change against all the government's cruel policies like the Rwanda bill. So for the speakers, for anyone in the room, if you would like to share with us your thoughts, please do.
If I could.
Yes, please.
Just as a practical step for everyone who's here and the different organisations, in terms of parliamentary interventions, I know they're not necessarily effective, but it does keep the issue in front of the minds of MPs and governments, etc. And it may well pick up wider publicity. But I'm happy if people want to ensure that we're continuing to sort of pummel ministers with parliamentary questions. Audrey, I put my email in the chat box in case you haven't got it. I'm sure you have it. But others, if you want to take my email, I'm happy to, if people want to send me parliamentary questions to table, I can redraft them in a way that's parliamentary acceptable in the parliamentary language. The reason for that is we've tried to ensure that there's a steady flow of parliamentary questions on different issues around this, because the civil servants then start reporting to ministers that there is noise. And what I can do is circulate those questions around other MPs as well, who can then also start raising them. So it's putting pressure on the government that there are people breathing down their necks. It is time, I think, for us to go for another debate in Parliament if we can. It's always hit or miss, but if I can get a number of MPs, and we might be able to pick some cross-party support up for going for another debate specifically about the hotels issue. But obviously, if we can get a debate, we can then link it to Rwanda, because it is directly linked to the way that people are being picked up, that sort of thing. So that's the sort of parliamentary interventions. In addition to that, to be honest, I think what Halaleh said about making sure that we're linking up right the way across the whole range of political campaigns is absolutely key. And obviously one area is working with the trade unions. The public service, the civil servants union, PCS, has been actually brilliant on all these issues. We've got a parliamentary group, a PCS parliamentary group, so we'll put that back on the agenda with them as well. They've been so helpful on the legal challenges around Rwanda and elsewhere as well. So again, it might be worthwhile if we meet again in this format, we get a PCS representative along.
Yeah. Can I continue?
Of course you can. Please go ahead.
Well, actually, first of all, thank you so much for all the speakers' contribution in this discussion. And thanks, John. This is a very good idea that you give this opportunity to us as a women organization, as the people who signed it, charity organization who signed this open letter, and then discuss it about the Rwanda's future. So this is really good. I think it would be good maybe for Aman as a project on this open letter to communicate with all those organizations who signed it, that share it, the idea of John, that we can bring you with the questions for Parliament, and then make it like a letter, send it to John, and John would, on behalf of us that we are talking, we are here, so discuss it in the Parliament. We never give up on the politician, we never give up on the open letter, and we never give up on the working on the grassroots with people one by one whenever we are, to challenge this issue, because it's both-sided. It's about the politician and the law, and it's about the peoples and power. So therefore, from today, I think we came to good idea, really, that we have one person in the Parliament that can be connected with this discussion, with this big issue. And also we have so many organizations and activists who wanted to be part of this movement and this work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Halaleh. Maybe any other thoughts or opinions?
Ooh,
Or if
maybe early.
yeah, or if you're not comfortable putting your mic on, you can put it on the chat. I can see Angela from One Strong Voice, her mic is off, so
I was going to say something.
yes.
You know, with this Rwanda scheme, there's a limited number of people who can be sent to Rwanda. So it's going to seem like it's going to take over 100 years to actually deal with people who are human beings being left in limbo. I mean, the question I would probably put to the government is, what does it want to do with all these people? There's an implication, welfare, costs, people not being able to rebuild their lives, being traumatized. And another thing that I have noticed is that when it comes to healthcare, it's become so embedded, the immigration system, that people are not receiving the care and consideration that they're entitled to and should have. I mean, what is the government doing about this? Because it's going to end up with a lot of people who have mental health illnesses that will not be able to, the NHS will not be able to handle the capacity at all. And we'll be hearing about incident after incident after incident, which is very sad and unfortunate. So that would be the question I would put to the government, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. Very good point indeed. Yes, I think it's a valid question. Any other thoughts or opinions, maybe, or questions? I think not. So it was a pleasure having you all in today's session. Thank you very much for the speakers. Really, thank you all for making the time to be here. It was a pleasure listening to you and listening to your insights and thoughts. I'll be following up with the recordings and with all the amazing links that our speakers and our attendees put in the chat. And we hope to see you soon in a better situation for the asylum seekers in the UK. Thank you again, and we wish you a lovely day ahead. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.